How's it going, Dave from Comic Book Investments? So you guys wanted it, and here's that video. I did a video a while ago about 100 books if you have a budget of $100. And now you guys wanted a bigger budget. So here's the bigger budget. This is $250. This is 100 comic books under $250. That means if you have $250, you should buy one of these books on this list. And these are great, great books. High keys, first appearances, first issues, origins, multiple team ups, things like that. These are great keys to buy if you have a budget of $250. So here is the caveat. Many of you will say, hey, Dave, you didn't put in this book. Is this book not good enough to be on your list? No, that's not it. I can only put 100 on here. So there's many books out there that just won't make the list. Doesn't mean that they're bad or worse than the ones on this list. Also, this list isn't in any order. So number 1 isn't better than number 50. It's just how I laid it out. That's all. First one is New Mutants 98. This is the first appearance of Deadpool. And 8.0 has currently sold for $225, and you can look at recent sales that I've put up here to showcase that is sold for around that price. So you can get a 8.0 of the first Deadpool for under $250. Transformers number 1. You can get yourself a 9.4 for $173. Now you might be thinking, why not put it on a 9.6? Or a 9.8. Well, you can't get that. Once it gets up to 9.6, it gets too expensive. So some of these books on this list will, yes, it'd be nicer if you could get the higher grade. If you can afford the higher grade, of course, go for the higher grade, but it won't be hitting that budget. It'll just be too expensive. Next, we got Spider-Man 300, first appearance of Venom. You can get a 6.5 for $250. Spider-Man 361, first appearance of Carnage. You can get a 9.8. Yes, a 9.8 for under $250. One recently sold for $240. Hulk 182. This is kind of Wolverine's third appearance. You can get a 9.2 for $225. Iron Man and Submariner number 1. You can get an 8.5 for selling for $234. Now you might be asking, like, what are these prices? These are actual sales. Now, a lot of people will be like, hey, David, I can't find this book at $234. Where would you get? These are actual sales. You might go online and some person who have listed, an 8.5 of this particular book, and they're like, I want $500. It's never going to sell. It's never going to sell. These are actual sales numbers that I have a system, an app that lets me see actual sales data, and these are actual sales. Sandman number 1 in a 9.6 is $200. Iron Fist 14, first appearance of Sabretooth. In a 6.0, you can get it for $220. Green Lantern 59. First appearance of Guy Gardner, a 6.5, $235. Incredible Hulk Annual number 1, great cover. You can get a 7.0 for $194. Now, someone might you be asking, like, well, could I go a little higher? Yes, if you have a bigger budget and you want to go a little higher, you could probably go higher on the grades in these books. And again, these books are actual graded books. These are not raw books. So these are CGC 7.0, 9.6, whatever I say the grade is, it's a CGC. That is the most popular grading service to use that has most of the data. Jungle Action 5, first solo series of the Black Panther, a 9.4 you can get for $210. New Mutants 87, first appearance of Cable, you can get a 9.6 for $210. Hero for Hire, first appearance of Luke Cage, you can get a 6.5 for $225. Green Lantern 85, classic, iconic cover. You can get a 9.0 for $225. Submariner 35, Prelude to the Defenders. You can get a 9.0, one sold for $193. G.I. Joe number 1, great series. You can get a 9.4, one recently sold for $142. Uncanny X-Men 266, first appearance of Gambit. You can get a 9.6, one recently sold for $220. Invaders number 1, a 9.6, sold recently for $200. John Byrne's Next Men number 21. This is kind of Hellboy's first introduction into comic books. He had a couple other appearances before that, but you can get a 9.6 for $178. Sandman number 8, first appearance of Death. You can get a 9.6, $118. Tales of the Teen Titans number 44. You can get a 9.8 for $208. Now, this is the first appearance of Nightwing. Well, Dick Grayson became Nightwing, so that's kind of why this book is kind of important. Incredible Hulk 102, the start of his series all over again. You can get an 8.0 for $228. Marvel Premiere 15, first appearance of Iron Fist, an 8.5 recently sold for $220. Submariner number 1, A 7.0 recently sold for $228. Thor 337, a 9.6 recently sold for $206. This is the first appearance of Billy Ray. Web of Spider-Man #1, a 9.8 you can pick up for $135. Now some of these will be a little bit better than others. So obviously, getting the New Mutants 98 first Deadpool is probably a little better than getting Web of Spider-Man #1. But again, these are in no real particular order. I'm just putting it out there, but these are all great books to get. Swamp Thing #37, first appearance of Constantine, a 9.2 recently sold for $180. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, this is the 4th printing. You can get a 9.6 for $181. Thor 127, a 7.0 recently sold for $155. G.I. Joe #21, a 9.2 recently sold for $188. Thor 165, first appearance of him, which is basically Adam Warlock. You can get a 7.5 for $175. Star Wars #1, you can get a 9.0 for $221. Batman 251, great cover of the Joker, very demand. You can get a 4.5 for $243. Star Wars 42, a 9.4, recently sold for $234. Spectacular Spider-Man #1, a 9.6, $119. Now, a lot of times I put these grades on here, and this is kind of like the bottom entry level, I'd say. A lot of these I suggest to go higher. So, for example, the Spectacular Spider-Man #1, I would suggest to get your 9.8. But a 9.6 is fine. Once you get in the 9.4 territory, because look, a 9.6 is $119. Once you get to a 9.4, you're looking at around like a $90, $80 book, and a 9.2, you're basically looking at case cost. That's like getting a little too low because again, these have to be investable, so it's like has to be more in demand. So the higher you go, the more in demand they will be. Iron Fist #1, a 9.6, $214. Green Lantern 87, first appearance of John Stewart, a 5.0, recently sold for $241. Special Marvel Edition 15, first appearance of Shang-Chi, a 9.0, recently sold for $184. Now, this book, of course, you should go higher on, but once you get up to that 9.2, 9.4 level, it's going to go beyond the $250 budget. Spawn #1, you can get yourself a 9.8, $150. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, okay, Spawn, like, there's a ton that were made, but he is a very popular character, very in-demand character, and this might not be the greatest gain. It might not go up a ton, but it does have a nice floor, and it'll probably just steadily go up over time, just a little bit, not as much as the other one, just simply because there is so much out there. So many copies were made. Amazing Spider-Man 238, first appearance of Hobgoblin, a 9.2, recently sold for $228. Astonishing Tales 25, first appearance of Deathlock, a 9.4, you can pick up $231. Captain America 117, first appearance of Falcon, a 7.5 you can get for $247. Batman 232, first appearance of Ra's al Ghul, you can get a 4.0 for $235. Amazing Spider-Man 194, first appearance of Black Cat, you can get an 8.5 for $214. Avengers 57, in a 5.5 you can get for $226. That is the first appearance of Vision in the Silver Age. Vengeance of Bane, first appearance of Bane #1, you can get a 9.6 for $129. Black Panther #1, you can get a 9.6 for $169. Batman 234, you can get a 5.5 for $228. Now these Neil Adams covers in the Silver Age, fantastic. And it starts going into the Bronze Age as well. But these are great long-term. I put on so many lists of getting Neil Adams, like Silver Age, Bronze Age, like Batman covers from Batman or Detective, something like that. Great books. Always recommend buying. Amazing Adventures #11, first appearance of the Furry Beast. You can get an 8.5 for $239. Captain Marvel #1, you can get an 8.5 for $205. Batman Beyond #1, first appearance of Batman Beyond. You can get a 9.2 for $206. Batman 189, first appearance of the Scarecrow. You can get a 4.5 for $216. Fantastic Four #25, you can get a 4.0 for $204. Amazing Spider-Man 101, you can get a 6.0 for $230. That's the first appearance of Morbius. Amazing Spider-Man 135, that's the second appearance of the Punisher. You can get a 9.0 for $250. Fantastic Four 50, you can get a 5.0 for $205. Batman 181, first appearance of Poison Ivy. You can get a 2.0 for 200. Now you might be thinking 2.0, that seems a little low. But in a book like this, Poison Ivy, extremely popular character. I mean, she's on that TV show, the Harley Quinn TV show. And even though it's low, and you might think it's low for a book like this, you know, in Silver and sometimes even Bronze Age, it doesn't matter as much. Like, obviously, if this is a modern book, 2.0 probably you shouldn't get. But in a book like this, a 2.0 is just fine. It's still in such demand that people will still buy it and still want to get it. Captain America 100. You can get a 6.0 for $200. Batman Harley Quinn #1. You can get a 9.6 for $133. Brave and Bold 54. This is the first appearance of the Teen Titans. You can get a 4.5 for $248. Captain America 354. You can get a 9.8 for $221. Conan 23. First appearance of Red Sonja. You can get a 9.2 for $228. Amazing Spider-Man 252. You can get a 9.4 for $200. Now this book is extremely popular. It's very high in demand. This is basically the start of the whole black suit, which turns into Venom. And I get these books all the time. They sell very fast. So if you can get yourself a copy, I would not worry about years to come when you go to sell if this thing is going to sell, because it will sell very, very quick. Avengers 196, first appearance of Taskmaster. You can get a 9.6 for $180. Conan 24, first full appearance of Red Sonja. You can get a 9.2 for $157. Dark Knight Returns #1. You can get a 9.6 for $203. Daredevil #7, first red costume. You can get a 5.0 for $249. Now, to me, this is a great, great buy, because this is a very, very popular book, and to get a 5.0 under $250, that is really, really good, especially a Silver Age key such as this. This is one of the more popular Daredevil keys in its entire run. Defenders #1, 9.2 for $230. Silver Age Spider-Mans, anywhere between a 6.5 and a 9.0, you can get for about $200 to $250. I have put this pretty much at the top of every list I've ever made, which kind of gets repetitive and annoying, I'm sure. But I cannot stress enough that one of the best investments you can make if you're buying with the intent of investing into comic books is Silver Age Spider-Man. It doesn't really matter. You can get a key, a non-key, doesn't matter. It could be like a first appearance of so-and-so, or it could be a nothing. Still great. If you can get right around that 6.5 to 9.0, pick them up for $250, those are fantastic. They are literally the top of any list you can possibly imagine. Those are great, great gets no matter what. Batman 227, a 3.0 for $228. Detective Comics 880 with this great cover by Jock, a 9.6 for $155. Marvel Team Up #1, you can get a 9.0 for $200. X Factor 6, a 9.6 for $123. This is the first appearance of Apocalypse. Doctor Strange #1, you can get a 9.4 for $207. Edge of Spider-Verse #2, a 9.0 for $188. Fantastic Four 112, Hulk and Thing Battle, you can get a 7.5, recently sold for $208. Conan #1, a 5.5 for $180. Amazing Spider-Man 601, a 9.6, recently sold for $201. Now this book, it's not like a first appearance or anything, but people really love this cover, and it's been going up more and more and more recently. So maybe in 6 months or a year when you see this video, you won't be able to get a 9.6 for under $250. Avengers 116, you can get a 7.5 for $228. Fantastic Four 52, first appearance of Black Panther, a 2.0 for $240. X-Men 120, first full Alpha Flight, a 9.4, recently sold for $234. Wolverine #1, a limited, a 9.6, recently sold for $218. Daredevil 158, first Frank Miller on Daredevil, a 9.4, recently sold for $237. Flash 139, first appearance of Reverse Flash, a 3.5, recently sold for $180. X-Men 100, a 9.2, recently sold for $218. DC Comics Presents 26, first New Teen Titans, a 9.4, recently sold for $243. Daredevil 168, first appearance of Elektra, a 9.2, recently sold for $240. Miss Marvel 18, first appearance of Mystique, a 9.4, recently sold for $218. New Teen Titans #1, you can get a 9.8 for under $250. Hulk 1, first Red Hulk, a 9.6, originally sold for $199. Doctor Strange 169, you can get a 6.5 for $198. Now, a lot of these books you'll be like, David, I cannot find this book anywhere. Well, that's the thing, is you're going to have to hunt for these good deals. A lot of times, yeah, you might be able to see one in auction if it's a little more popular book, but sometimes you have to wait a little bit. You can't just jump on and expect someone's going to have one for, a decent price. Sometimes you have to look around for a little bit, but you can find these deals. And some of these books I put on here, it might, one week it'll sell for like $300, and the next week it sells for $225. That's because that person hunted around and the other person just straight up and bought it from some dealer or something like that where they had a higher price. But if you look around, if you wait, you can find yourself good deals at these prices. Iron Man 128, a 9.4, recently sold for $186. Batman The Killing Joke, a 9.8, you can get for $205. Moon Knight #1, you can get a 9.8 for $246. Daredevil 16, first Ramita on Spider-Man, you can get a 7.0 for $230. New Teen Titans #2, first appearance of Deathstroke, you can get a 9.6 for $225. Nova #1, you can get a 9.6 for $240. Savage She-Hulk #1, a 9.8, recently sold for $234. Werewolf by Night #33, second appearance of Moon Knight, a 9.2, you can get for $218. So that brings me towards the end of the list. I do have one more to show you, but let me know in the comments below if there's anything on there that I should have, looked at or showcased. Like I said, there is so many good ones out there for under the $250 budget that you may be looking to get, and these are just some of them. I couldn't put them all on the list, and I just did a various of different grade ranges. I tried to get the best grade that you could get for the $250. Now, obviously, you have a little more. You should probably go a little higher grade on some of these. But for the last one, it's kind of an inside joke if you've been watching me long enough. But the #1 book you should get, #1, even though it's not in any order, but the #1 book you should get is Eternals #1. You can get yourself a 9.8 for $1 million. Now, obviously that's a joke. I don't think you should get the Eternals #1. I don't think you should buy it. I don't think it's a good investment. Even though you could get a 9.8 for probably under $250, I wouldn't put it on this list. It was just clearly a joke that I always make fun of the Eternals. But these books on here I think are great, minus the Eternals, are great books that you should get. And I think if you bought them now, years to come, they'll be worth more than whatever you paid. And if you get them in these price ranges, these will all be under $250. If you can afford a little more, that'd be great on some of these books. But again, even if this is all you could afford on a book and you bought 5 or 10 of these, I think you did fantastic. These are great books. If they came across my desk, I run a consignment center. So if they came across, I'd be like, oh, this was pretty good, which I do all the time. I mentally look. People send me like their collections, and I'm like, ooh, this is pretty good. These are all good books. These will sell well. They'll do well. They'll be able to sell, that's another thing. You'll be able to sell these like quick. You won't have to sit on them for years and years waiting for that one right buyer to come along. They'll sell pretty quick, very in high demand. These books have the potential to go up quite a bit in price over time. So I think you did very well. One more thing. Have a great day.